I'm at the Yuba County Airport in Olivehurst and getting ready to take off in this World War II era B-17. Looks pretty airworthy. We'll see how this flight goes.
So, starting with the emergency exits as a review, is the main waste door, and that's the door that we'll be using for ingress and egress exclusively. In the event of an emergency, there are other opportunities to escape the aircraft, and first is the way back in the tail underneath the horizontal stabilizer. That's the hatch that is generally for the exclusive use of the tail gunner, and he doesn't complain much or eat much, so he just stays back there, and we don't use that door much. It's a difficult door to get to, and that's absolutely a last resort as an emergency exit. Moving forward in the waste area, you see those plexiglass panels that didn't exist on the wartime aircraft. They're in there for your comfort, and cap of the crash axe takes those out, and that's available. Those are on either side are available as exits as well. Moving forward on the ground with the aircraft on the gear, with the bomb bay open, that bomb bay area is also available as an emergency exit. Directly over the top of the wing, we don't need to go out to have a look at that, but there's in the aft end of the radio room, there's a glass panel back in what we call the turtle deck, and there's 4 red-handled bayonet fittings that a quarter turn each. That drops out, and that's available as an exit as well. In wartime conditions, this was generally something that they would use if they had to splash the airplane on the water, and the life rafts were right adjacent to that opening. So, but it's available also as an emergency exit. Forward to that in the cockpit, on either side of the cockpit, there's a small sliding window. Looks pretty small, but properly motivated, I think any one of us could get through that in a heartbeat. So, something to keep in mind. Last but not least, the hatch underneath the cockpit on the belly, call it the 12 o'clock high door. If you saw the movie, if you've ever seen the TV series, you see those guys come out with a gear bag. You know, they open that up, throw the gear bag on them, and then do this magic levitation up into the airplane. And still haven't figured that out yet, but if anybody has the key to that, I'd like to know. I think Youth Vitality had something to do with it. So that's for the emergency exits. We do have first aid kit on the aircraft up in the cockpit. We have fire extinguishers, one directly across from the main waste door, and then we also have a hand extinguisher up in the cockpit. We have earplugs and 6 sacks. It is noisy in there, very noisy. It's not painfully loud, but I defer. Bye-bye. We do have earplugs and 6 sacks, so it is loud, and over time, yes, it would probably damage your hearing, but if you have earplugs and want to use them, great. If you don't and would like a pair, I'll be glad to supply those. We have 6 sacks back in there, too. Don't talk much about those. Plants at seed, and we just don't want to go down that road. And it should be a pretty smooth flight. These are pretty smooth conditions, so it should be a pleasant journey indeed. No sun baking us, and the rain seems to be holding off, and we're grateful for that. We use a military-style seat belt. My colleague here will demonstrate this.
Here briefly. So to operate this, you bring this lever up, you insert this end through the rectangular opening. You bring the lever down. You notice as I bring the lever down, there's a hook that's engaging that rectangular opening. Once you've brought that down, don't forget, push hard on this lever till you hear that snap. That snap retains this lever. If you don't snap it, it'll work its way out in flight. Once you have it snapped, on either side you have an adjuster. To tighten the belt, you simply pull on the free end of the belt. To loosen the belt, you grab a hold of this fabric tab and you pull on that, and it should loosen for you.
Thank you very much. All right, now, so much for the flight attendant stuff. Now to the tour guide stuff. The seats, as I mentioned, are for taxiing, takeoff, and landing only. Shortly after we take off, if wherever you are on the aircraft, cast your glance forward up into the cockpit where I'll be. You'll see my smiling face through the bomb bay with a big smile and 2 thumbs up. And that means it's time to get up and explore. And that means everywhere from the bulkhead behind the main waste door all the way up to the nose where the bombardier sat. And it's certainly interesting to view each of the positions where these guys did their business. And a big part of the experience is being on the move through the airplane. Everywhere you go, the wind's a little bit different. It leaks air around the ball turret. There's breezes, sounds, smells, and things that just vary as you move through. So I encourage you to stay on the move. Speaking of moving through the cabin, there's a couple of choke points, one of them being the bomb bay. As you move forward through the radio room, as you go to the bomb bay, it's a little catwalk about that wide, and as you step into there, it does V out, not nearly enough for some of us, and me included, but if you're careful, you can get through there. Now, if you've got a camera or a phone or something hanging out on a belt, make sure you get that either behind or in front of you as you slide through there so you don't shear it off into the bomb bay. If you do drop something in the bomb bay, sunglasses, phone, camera, whatever, don't bother going for it. Those doors give weight about 100 pounds, and so in case a bomb let loose, it wouldn't be stuck in the airplane. It would, the doors would release and out they would go. So I'm sure any of us would go through as well. So I'd hate to redeposit anybody in the metropolitan area for one of a pair of sunglasses or something. Give us a heads up, tell us what's going on, and we'll fish it out of there when we get back. Up in the cockpit there's room for 2 people beside myself up there, okay? And then there's room for 2 more people down in the nose. And the reason I'm getting into the traffic cop end of this now, because that's pretty much a full boat. Between the pilots, myself, 2 and 2, that's about all that will fit up there. So as you're coming up through the bomb bay, or you anticipate coming up through the bomb bay, if I've got a hand out, that means I've got a full boat up here. We've got to wait for somebody else to come out. But of course, once we get underway, there'll be, well, of course, at this particular time, let me review the seating. There's 6 seats in the main waist area. There's 3 seats in the radio room, and then there's 1 seat up in the cockpit next to me behind the pilots. And this is when I generally solicit a volunteer to sit up there and do. Don't rush me, not all at once. Don't everybody come at me. All right, you're my guy. Okay, I'll have you go on with the with pilots, and if you would take the aircraft right-hand seat behind the pilots. There's a headset on the left-hand side, and I need that to be able to communicate.
Behind me.
Looks like they're not moving, but they're going at a full